in life is to help others be the best that they can be. I want people to hear my story, so they don't have to go down the same path that I did. People need to cherish life and not take it for granted, because it can be easily taken away.
Good. And so we're gonna fix that, right? That kind of like, oh shit. Ridiculous. And then once you're there, you can fly to the other countries for like $50 a pop. Like last time I was in Europe, I went alone to Amsterdam, and I did everything I needed to do in Amsterdam, right? That you could, right? Then from there, I flew to Rome.
Hearing Alex speak about his experiences from a first-hand perspective was very impactful.
Right? And I'm no stranger smoking weed. Well, I went every time I bought a joint.
And I think you can read anything in a textbook or look anything up online, or even, watch footage of people who you don't know being affected by something like that.
It made me realize that could be me and that I could be in his place.
Until you actually sit down with somebody and hear their story and their experiences, I think it takes on a whole new meaning and a whole new weight to it.
Growing up in Connecticut was really fortunate for me because we lived on the beach growing up in a pretty affluent area. Some key principles that my parents taught me growing up was hard work. So both my mother and father worked religiously, constantly to take care of us as growing up. So my mother is a marketing guru and still to this day works very, very hard for everything that she has. My father, on the other hand, was a DCF juvenile detention officer. Working 18-hour days was nothing that was beyond him. So watching them do that day in and day out really took we really took a big mental note in their work ethic. What led me to the Positive Results program was a gentleman named Obadiah Baker who came to me through Seatown. He had two individuals named Mike and Nick that he wanted me to train, and after giving him a background of my story, he thought I'd be an asset to helping pursue the Positive Results program.
Right up to the shoulders, and then the higher the elbows are, the less stress it's going to put on your wrist, right? And so that just takes a little bit of shoving the shoulders up and pushing to the left. Does that make sense? Yeah. Now, always look straight
I'm nervous,
ahead.
but I'm also excited. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do with the biking, but I think I can do it. I'm from Mount Vernon, Ohio, and Mount Vernon is a very small town. The people there are very welcoming and they are very genuine people. Growing up with a good family and a family who supports you is very helpful in those situations.
I wanted to come back and do the program again this year to see how it evolved.
Well, again, welcome to the Rite Aid Cleveland Marathon 5K races.
I thought that it would be really good for Nick to join because I thought it would be kind of eye-opening for him, a way to kind of get him out of his comfort zone and try something new, especially during a time when he just came out to his friends and family. I thought this would be very, very beneficial.
I first met Mike when I came to college here in Cleveland, and he was like the first or second person that I came out to, and he truly opened up my eyes and made me a better person. Coming out to my friends and family was equally easy and difficult. My friends were very accepting because I've been around them for a long time and they know my personality. Coming out to my family was very difficult because they are just now adjusting to the LGBTQ community.
I was a senior in high school when I came out. I was something that I was obviously very, very worried about doing for a long time. And my parents actually asked me if I was gay, so they kind of bit the bullet on that for me, and I didn't really have to come to them about it. But of course, it was something that felt like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. And my mom actually told me that her and my dad had a conversation when I was 5 and I quit t-ball. And my mom was like, oh, he's probably gay. And my dad was like, yeah, he's definitely gay. And so, you know, they were always really supportive of me. They've always been really supportive of anybody that I brought home. And my friends were the same way and are the same way.
Sharing my personal experiences with Mike and Nick gave me the peace of mind knowing that I could help others who are younger than myself make better decisions or more educated decisions as they progress through life. Life is constantly going to be giving them curveballs, whether they are in school, whether at work, or they're in leisure activities, and I want to make sure that they know the consequences of what can happen if they happen to make a wrong decision one day. One interesting story that we have growing up as kids is that our parents always pushed us to be iconoclasts, right? Never following the trends or doing anything. So growing up, we come from a family of musicians. And so starting at a very young age, we got together in a punk rock band, being in middle school and getting up on stage in front of older people, but really laying down something different that nobody in a tight-knit, affluent Connecticut town was doing.
Yo, I appreciate my crew coming out for this. This is real fun. This one's for my boy.
Being a part of a band growing up, especially being young, really set us apart from everybody else. We had a lot of people following us in what we did and wanted to be a part of our group and what we were doing.
Listen close, man, cause I'ma tell you all a secret. This is me, this is real, this is my shred of weakness. I can't breathe, I can't sleep, sometimes I can't believe it. You and I were supposed to ride, Cooney said never die.
While my parents always pushed us to break the rules, question things that were happening around us, as long as we maintained our integrity as best as we could. So the first time that I got introduced to drugs, I was in 6th grade, and I was visiting with one of my friends at a sleepover. And we had some friends next door to them that we went to school with growing up all our lives. And the older brother had a friend that gave us a call. I picked up the phone for whatever reason at my friend's house, and he asked if I would like to get high for the first time, and he was talking about marijuana. And of course I said yeah, and without hesitation I ran next door. Growing up, being already in a band and being a musician, marijuana was not something that was beyond us. And so shortly thereafter, we got exposed to psychedelic mushrooms. And we only did that about once a year growing up. And it wasn't until I was working for my first job at McDonald's that somebody exposed me to heroin. The first time being exposed to heroin, I was exposed to by my manager on the job. So I was actually clocked in, and my manager, knowing that I was a musician and experimental, said, hey, I have something I want to show you. So he led me down into the basement, and he loaded up his spoon, it loaded up his syringe, and showed me what he was doing. And I sat there with a fascination and curiosity. When I realized that he was fine afterwards, that he didn't collapse or die or anything in front of me, obviously my mind started ticking and wondering and being curious about it. And this actually stems from when I learned that marijuana was not as bad as people had said. I wanted to know what else they were lying to me about.
I personally haven't ever dealt with any type of substances or drugs in my life before, but I've definitely seen friends and even an ex of mine deal with it, and that was something that was very eye-opening, especially with my ex, because he is a meth addict, and seeing him go through that is something that I never really thought that I would see. Seeing him go through that was definitely very painful. I think when you have somebody that has so much potential and could be doing so many other things with their life, and when you kind of see the effects that the drug has and it kind of takes hold on them, it's really rough.
I had the opportunity to use it every single day for an entire year. One day, somebody couldn't get any, and I thought I would be fine. Lo and behold, 12 hours later, I started to feel this itch, this crawl, this sort of sickness, or dope sickness as they call it, reach throughout my body, and I realized there was something very, very wrong.
Drugs are pretty common. My high school, there's a lot of drug dealers and a drug bust. My hometown has like meth labs that have been busted before, and it's very hard to resist the temptation of drugs.
So the events that led up to me going into a coma actually stemmed from an overdose that happened 3 months beforehand. I was living back at home since I was no longer living at my boss's house, which is where I was doing most of my drug use. And we got into a fight with one of my brothers. And so in order to escape that, I went back to my boss's house for the night. I had already scored for the evening. And in the morning, as a ritual as I was, I'd wake up and go immediately to the bathroom and give myself my fix. Upon leaving the bathroom, I collapsed right onto the floor, where my breath started getting very, very short, and the person who I was living with, lucky for me, was late going to work and found me in the kitchen. So he ended up calling my father, and he was over within the next 5 minutes. By the time he got over, I was already very short of breath, in fact, almost not breathing. My lips were turning blue, and so he immediately started giving me compressions in order to save my life. 911 had already been called, and shortly thereafter, I woke up in the back of an ambulance with the taste of rubber gloves in my mouth. The doctors had told my parents that had I had an opportunity to come back, I would probably be in a vegetative state. I am very fortunate to the fact that I was not in that state. So I came back and realized that there was no more shot that I would ever touch that again. It was probably the easiest decision that I ever made. But unfortunately, with all that stress and pain in my head about what I caused my family and the people around me, I began substituting with alcohol. And that took place for the next 2 years after I got clean, until I was in college and decided that I needed to quit drinking alcohol as well. And I really made a 360 in my life and vowed that I would never abuse substances again.
Previously, I did not know about Alex being a substance abuser, so being with him day by day and realizing his true story really helped me realize what could happen if I was a substance abuser.
When I chose not to use substances anymore, it really opened up my eyes that I could use my story and my experiences to help others around me who were just as impressionable and misled.
So I think when you look at the LGBT community, there are a number of internal and external factors that affect the people who live within the community. So, externally you have a lot of societal pressures, you have a lot of these kind of things that have been in place for a long time that have told gay people that, they're not good enough, or, it's wrong to be gay. And while it's a lot better than it was, 10 years ago even, we still have a while to go, right? I think internally you have to look within the community and within ourselves, and you have to say, okay, I want that respect, right? I want that respect of people outside the community. I think it's really important for people to realize that we do kind of need to rise above that stereotype that gay people are substance abusers and, people who just can't rise above that. So I think when we have programs like Positive Results, it really, really helps to kind of open people's eyes and realize, like, hey, this is what's happening, this is what we can change. And when you look at people like Alex, and his story, that's like an example of a success story, right? And so now it's like, you look at that, well, now maybe we can just prevent people from even having to go through that in the first place. From the Recovery Resources Workshop, I definitely learned more of a kind of like scientific background as to like the effects that these drugs can have, and also the different situations and circumstances that people could find themselves in.
We know what that white paper is when they light it up. We know what it is. And now it's being exposed to younger adults faster because it's in.
We talked about abuse versus dependency, non-use versus experimentation, and things like that. And I never really saw, it laid out in that way. So that was very, very educational. And then also kind of thinking about when we talked about the decision tree. So it's like, you have a normal night that can go 0 to 100. You never even know what can happen.
It was really exciting preparing for my first race because I got to learn new techniques throughout the gym and new experiences, meet new people. The community around us was really helpful and really nice.
The different workouts that we had them do in preparation for the duathlon involved a lot of cardiovascular work, and not only that, but more complex weightlifting elements like snatches and clean and jerks, and then more traditional elements working with basic strengths such as squats and deadlifts. It was a very well-rounded program aimed at specifically increasing their work capacity and making sure that they could handle any task given to them.
So we would do different workouts of the day and Metcons with different Olympic style lifts and different cardio movements that really kind of helped our endurance and helped us prep for what the marathon would be. Because while the marathon was only running and biking, that endurance kind of came from all of the CrossFit workouts.
Feel the quads loaded and go! Hold.
Training Mike and Nick was very rewarding through their progress in the Positive Results program. They had a lot of teamwork, a lot of camaraderie, and watching them strive every day to reach new heights was something that I'll always take with me after this.
Nice and close to you on the way up.
I hope Mike and Nick take away from the Positive Results experience is that they can and they are in control of everything that they do here and forward. It was very rewarding to watch Mike and Nick participate in the duathlon. It was finally time to see the fruits of our labors and all the work that they put in really paid off.
I'm looking forward to going into it. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm excited to see how I do. I have never biked 13 miles before, so I don't really know how to pace myself, but I'm just gonna push through it and see what happens.
I'm excited for this race. It's my first race, so with it being my first race, I'm really excited to get out there and accomplish big things. The race was pretty difficult. I wasn't really prepared for the biking, but I felt like once I got out there, I was in like a zone, and just being in that environment of like being free and open and being focused really helped me drive myself further.
So the way that the race was laid out was basically like 2 large laps around these country roads, and it was kind of like one big rectangle. So, you know, we make it all the way through, and I didn't know this, but so we make it all the way through, and I see a sign, and to my left, it's like finish line is that way, and then straight ahead, it's like lap number 2, and I didn't realize that like you had to do 2 laps. I was like coming towards that sign, and I was like, oh man, like that 13 miles, like that wasn't too bad. And then I realized like, oh, so I'm halfway through this. So that's when I was kind of like, you know, all right, this is gonna be like pretty mentally taxing for the next half, but we still did it, we got through it, and it was fun.
The Positive Result program really helped me with being prepared with more real life experiences and being prepared in the gym.
On a personal level, I feel like through Positive Results, I've still managed to keep developing my interpersonal skills with people, which is always great. Some of my goals moving forward are to continue to do CrossFit, to continue to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you know, work out, be active. I eventually think it would be really, really fun if I could actually teach CrossFit and yoga on the side.
Moving forward, I hope to use my experiences and my education to help the general public in staving off the risk factors and helping make sure that the youth are more educated, knowing that there are risk factors out there that could intervene with their lives at any moment, and I want them to make sure that they can make the most positive decision possible.
This one's for you, JoJo. This one's for you, JoJo. I owe you for this one, Lester. I owe you for this one, Lester. I owe you for this one, Lester.
Listen close, man, cause I'ma tell you all a secret. This is me, this is real, this is my shred of weakness. I can't breathe, I can't sleep, sometimes I can't believe it. You and I were supposed to ride, Goonie said never die. Got the barrel to my chest, mama's voice is in my head. But what do you expect when all my heroes be dropping dead? Got mad respect for Pavone, Miller, and XX. 2018 will go down as the year of death. So now we sit and wait, cause we terrified for who's up next. I hold my breath, pray to God to put my soul at rest. But in my heart of hearts, I know it's only just the start. I gotta make